Look. If you like this game, then that's cool. Even if I turn around and say that a game was shit, that's only me saying that I didn't get on with it. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't enjoy it, and if there is a game that I didn't like but you did, then that does actually make me a little bit happier, because then I know that at least someone got something out of it. But before I even bought this one, I gathered that this was going to be one of those games where I couldn't possibly see any reason why someone would want to play it, but I'm obviously in a vast minority. But these videos aren't called rants for the fuck of it, so get ready to have your cherished childhood memories stamped on you dumb little shits. I originally set out trying to get into the Final Fantasy series, hoping that I'd like it, because hey, almost everyone in the world seems to like it, and those people don't tend to keep quiet about it. So I ended up buying Final Fantasy 6 and 7 on Steam, 13 on the PlayStation 3, and 10 and 10-2 on Vita, or as I like to call it, Charlie's Angels. But here's the thing with all of them. Whilst I enjoyed them all to some degree, 10 especially, but only for the gameplay, I found that I personally didn't enjoy them as much as the fanboys out there do. Final Fantasy 7 had a very good, yet all-over-the-place plot, and I liked the villain, and 13 was fun and had some good boss battles, but was let down by all the characters being plucked straight out of the bin of discarded personalities, a plot that needed to be given a few hours before anyone could make sense of it, beautiful environments which could not be explored, with lightning being forced down one corridor to another, and unforgiving difficulty spikes. But through all of this, and several other games that I've played, I've come to realise something, and I'll be the first to hold up my hands and admit that I'm not really a fan of JRPGs. Except for Shin Megami, you've been let off the hook. There's just something about them that turns me off. The hybrid, turn-based / real-time combat and random encounters are a big part of it, but even some of the plots just don't do it for me. I'm sure they're very good, with Final Fantasy VII being rated by many as one of the greatest video game stories ever written, but when looking at a lot of other JRPG stories, for me, they all just kind of blend into one stereotype. An underdog boy from a poor background has to defeat an evil monster / entity that wants to destroy the world by going from one brightly coloured map to another, swinging around a sword that's too big for him, and with a hairstyle that looks like a bomber's just gone off in his face. And there's usually a girl in there too who's kind of quirky, but really has the personality of a coconut, and acts like one too, in that they'll just usually be stationary for most of the game due to some spell or another, but will occasionally move when nudged. And I could make a breast joke there, seeing as coconuts have milk in them too, but the romance side of these games just don't feel like they belong there either. I don't necessarily dislike this kind of premise, but you have to admit that it seems to be in most JRPGs these days. So, with all of this in mind, why the fuck would I want to play Kingdom Hearts HD 1.5 Remix? I thought as I held it in my hands whilst taking my morning dump. Because it's good, said the gaming community. Well then, I thought. Like all other times I've played JRPGs, I'll put my reservations for this genre to the side and let the game remake it in about 3 hours by my reckoning. And on a quick note, HD 1.5 Remix, is this a gaming title or an album cover? Well, I ended up finishing this game with about 16 hours logged, and I got proved right exactly 3 hours in. I will say this though, there were only 2 reasons why I made it to the end here. 1, I hate not being able to finish games, even if I really dislike it. Forgetting Mass Effect Andromeda, are we? Shut up, I'll go back to it someday. Next year, or so. Maybe. And 2, Disney! But I'm exactly 1 page of the script into this video so far, and I haven't talked about what the game is like. So here's what the game is like. The game is like this. You play the part of a boy hero with as much personality as a filing cabinet. You are stranded on a tropical island because your parents don't love you. Yes, I'm still talking about the game and not you personally. You've grown up with a small clan of Ewoks who all have about as much personality as a set of nightstands, so that Sora can stand out among them as a filing cabinet among nightstands, and will be smug and superior when it turns out that he is destined to be the hero that this town needs, if you pardon the Batman reference. Among his clan is Kairi, the main love interest of the game who you won't see for most of it, and thus has no character development. And Riku, who basically auditioned for the part of Sephiroth in Final Fantasy VII, but didn't get it for being non-threatening. But then lo and behold, one day your paradise world gets invaded by an evil entity along with many dark minions who try to kill you and destroy the world. But Sora, the underdog of this story from the hood, is able to fight them off with the Keyblades that the plot spits up, which is way too big for him. It's now up to Sora to travel to different worlds, all bright and colourful, in order to save his own world from destruction, and to save Kairi, who's been kidnapped and put under a spell that means she can't move and now looks more like a coconut. Oh fucking hell, this is just another copy and paste JRPG, isn't it? Well, no actually, the game said back. This is not your typical run-of-the-mill JRPG. We have other stuff too. Oh yeah, like what? Well, our combat is in real time and not that turn-based hybrid that you hate so much. Go on. There's no random encounters and you'll be able to follow the plot and get into it more than most JRPGs. Uh-huh, and why is that exactly? Because it's set in the Disney universe. Oh, so what you're saying is that I can run around different Disney worlds from all the films that I grew up with and get to meet with different Disney characters and go around fucking up other Disney characters in combat that is totally skill-based with decent leveling up, and boss battles that can be fought and won using your own initiative, and not by figuring out the one and only tactic that will work against it, and all of the Disney characters being voiced by the actual voice actors who did the voices in the films? To which the game quickly flicks through the game description. Well, sort of? I think the biggest hard-on for me occurred when I went to Agrabah, and by then I'd already teamed up with Goofy and Donald Duck, and got to go to the Cave of Wonders in order to battle Jafar, voiced by Jonathan Freeman, who also voiced him in the film, as well as Gilbert Gottfried, who reprised his role of Iago. It must be said that this game has so much charm and wonder that it's pretty much got past the point of bursting at the seams and has now erupted out of your TV and all over your face. Let that image absorb into your mind! All of the Disney worlds and characters were great and well presented, and naturally there's a healthy amount of humour among these parts that's carefully spoon-fed to the player at regular intervals in order to keep you fixated on the screen. It's great, and it's hard not to see the charm that this game proudly displays like a highly decorated and expensive filing cabinet. But as I sat there playing away and trying to put together an unbiased opinion of this game, a bolt of lightning suddenly struck my head and I died. I quickly came to a sober realisation. The reason I was enjoying this game was not because it played well or because the story was good or anything along those lines. The main selling point for me here was the Disney aspect of it. And then I thought, if you put all the Disney stuff to the side, is this game still good? 5 seconds later and I realised no. But maybe that's not giving the game enough time. 8 hours later, and it was still a no. 16 hours later, with the game complete, it was also still a no. This game was made by Square Enix and produced by Disney Interactive, but while the Disney side of it is good, that's just a testament to how much I loved the films growing up and still do to some extent now. Whereas I found all of the Square Enix related parts to be completely dull and uninteresting. As you probably already guessed by the first part of this video, I didn't really like the Square Enix characters that much, and the ones that I did recognise, I didn't give a crap for. Cloudy McCloudstrife and Sephiroth make an appearance as small inconsequential bosses, but I found their presence in this game to serve only to deliver a first-class hard-on for the fanboys out there. And there's also Aerith Gainsborough from Final Fantasy VII, as well as a few from number 8. Wait, didn't Aerith die in Final Fantasy VII? I'm pretty sure she died in Final Fantasy VII, so what the fuck is she doing here? Get back in the grave, you slag! Actually, I have a question for anyone out there who's played Final Fantasy VIII. Does Leon actually have any emotions? I've never played that game, but in Kingdom Hearts he's all like, I know the end of the world is coming, and I would help, but I'm too busy brooding and trying to look badass. No, you're not badass, you're just bad. But true! What about the combat? Yeah, what of it? Okay, it's in real time, which is what I personally prefer if that's what you're into, but that doesn't mean that it's good. The game gives you spells and magic and different attack abilities, but all it really boils down to is run straight at the enemy and mash the attack button. Or if the boss is too hard, then go to the sides of them and mash the attack button. You can cast spells like fireballs and lightning, but all of that feels like about as effective as trying to smash through a wall with a rich tea biscuit. Trust me. If you're about to play this game for the first time, then choose the warrior class first, and then choose to bin the magic class second, because despite the strange choice on the game's half of getting you to pick a player class and then which one to ditch, you'll naturally be press ganged into a melee role because, let's face it, you're going to be spending most of your time swinging that key around that the game gave you. And even if you ditch magic at the start of the game, then you're still not missing out on anything, because you can heal just as easily with items, and Donald seems to be spell happy as it is anyway, so just leave the magic shit to him. Also, despite this game's combat being in real time, and yes there is an element of skill involved, it's still heavily dependent on what level you are, which means of course that grinding is mandatory here. Whoop-de-fucking-do. Even more of a reason not to become invested in the story. Would love to stay and find out what happens next, but I've got to go back to town and fight the same enemies over and over again. Saving the world is just gonna have to wait. Speaking of magic, the friendly AI sucks shit so hard in this game when it comes to intelligent use of their magics and items. Regardless of what enemy they are fighting, they'll use up all of their mana points right away as if they're fighting a boss. Meaning that if you were hoping on having them topped up on magic right before a boss fight, then that's not gonna happen if you suddenly get attacked right beforehand. And with items it's even worse. Here's a tip for you. Unless you know that the next encounter is a tough boss, then for fuck's sake, don't go giving your allies any items, because they will throw an item party otherwise. So you know a boss is coming right up and you're making preparations. You give, let's say, Donald, one of your Mega Elixirs, which fully restores both magic and health to every party member. This is one of the most useful items you can find, and naturally, it's incredibly rare. But after getting all of that sorted, you encounter one really small and weak enemy. You get hit in the process and lose 1 hit point, to which Donald goes, "Don't worry Sora, I'll heal you with this," and then uses that item. Well thanks a fucking lot! It's just as well you did that, Donald, because otherwise the next boss fight would have been doable. Lucky I have you on hand to fuck everything up. And I know I mentioned him earlier, but Riku is such a shit character. He gets turned to the dark side because he thinks that Sora doesn't want to be his friend anymore. But that's only because he feels that he isn't serious enough about finding Kairi. But it's fucking clear from where he meets him that he is serious about it. So why not just join the party? Oh, he's disappeared. What the f? Why not just tag along? And then when he lets the darkness into his heart, he stops giving a fuck about it entirely. Oh. Okay then. No, am I supposed to swallow that? And is that the darkness that's making him like that, or is it Ansem? Oh, there's another character who just fucking appears and stubbornly steals the stage. Yes, there are reports left by him that explains things a bit better, but I'm not on board enough with the plot of this game to care enough as it is, considering that the main objective is to save a girl by travelling to other worlds and doing stuff that doesn't involve saving this girl, and meeting up with Disney characters and sorting out their problems. Because let's face it, that's what we're really here for. We're all playing this to see Disney characters and reminisce about our favourite childhood movies. Not to spend time investing in that. And the endgame boss fight has clearly never heard of the phrase, outstaying your welcome. It's not uncommon for a final boss to have several forms or phases, but this guy has about 8 in total. That's 8 boss fights you have to fight back to back. Honestly, that's too much. I've never been a fan of this style of boss fight either. It's like the game is saying, haha, you may have won that fight, but you didn't really beat him. That was just a warm-up. And yes, you may have gotten his health down to 0, but now he's going to take a quick breather here in a cutscene, and now you get to fight him all over again, but this time, he's gained more power for some reason. Bollocks, mate. If my health goes down to 0, I don't get full health and more power, I get a game over screen. There just isn't much really to like about the story, at least in my opinion. The combat is simplistic by attacking head on or attacking to the side if you really want to spice things up. Sure, you can block and dodge, but there's no timing or strategy as there is in something like, say, Dark Souls. None of the characters are particularly memorable, even including the Disney characters, and that's mainly because, with the exception of Donald and Goofy, none of them are around for very long before you move on to the next world, never to see them again. And I don't see why any of the pre-existing Final Fantasy characters needed to be there. They literally added nothing to the plot. Sid fixes up your ship, but you could just replace him with some other generic Kingdom Hearts specific character and it'd work just fine. Or perhaps there could have been a building in Traverse Town or whatever it's called that acts as a garage for your ship instead of having to go through the overbearing upgrade and planning system when you leave town. At the end of the day, I'm really struggling to find anything good about this game, other than its shoutouts to all the classic Disney movies. You may indeed smile when Genie shows up, but he's not going to be around for long, and soon you'll have to forget about him even being there because there's another world that we have to travel to and do the same thing in all over again. This game is well loved by many, many people, and though I believe each to their own, and if you do love this game, then that's awesome, keep on loving it, but I'm certainly not able to agree with you on this if that is the case. I can't find anything here that's making me say, hey, there's this really good game you should play called Kingdom Hearts, try it out if you haven't. Instead, I just have to be honest with how I feel about it, and all I'm feeling is, well, that was a waste of time. At least I'll never have to play that again. Maybe this game is only aimed at a certain group of players and not me, and if that is so, then there's no wonder I didn't enjoy it. But the back of the box seems to suggest that it'll be enjoyed by all ages. Well, I guess the joke's on you, Kingdom Hearts. You ever heard of the phrase, you had me at hello? Well, you lost me at Square Enix.